Hi, I'm Elizabeth Curry Chandler. I'm a journalist and writer who, together with my husband Otis, founded the website Goodreads, an endeavor which completely took over our lives. Today I'm editor-in-chief of Goodreads, and I'm still doing what I've always loved to do, interviewing and writing about creative and dynamic people. For this podcast, I get the world's most interesting people to tell me about the books that have shaped their lives. Support for Books of Your Life comes from Audible. Enjoy audiobooks anytime, anywhere with the free Audible app. Your first book is free when you start a 30-day trial, so why not check it out? Visit audible.com/Goodreads or text Goodreads to 500-500. Nora McInerny knows a lot about surviving terrible things. In 2014, her first husband, Aaron, died of brain cancer. She miscarried her second pregnancy, and her father died, all within the span of a few weeks. But Nora has put together a different life in the wake of all that tragedy. She's the host of the wonderful podcast Terrible, Thanks for Asking. She wrote a book about Aaron's brain cancer called It's Okay to Laugh. It became a national bestseller. Now she's out with a new memoir, No Happy Endings, a hopeful, funny, and also sad book about life as a widow who falls madly in love again. Nora joined me from St. Paul, Minnesota to talk about it and the books that have shaped her life. Thanks so much for agreeing to speak with me, Nora. I tore through No Happy Endings.
That makes me so happy. Also, hopeful, sad, and funny is what I want, like, tattooed on my body. I might go do that. I just wrote it down as soon as you said it. It's like, hopeful, sad, and funny. What a summary of me. Thank you. My book.
You're welcome. I really liked the book. I thought it was charming, authentic, and wonderfully honest. So anyway, I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to write this second book?
I'm sure everybody who listens to a podcast about books understands that a lot happens between when you write a book and when it comes out. And especially the first book I wrote, It's Okay to Laugh, in the 6 months after Aaron died. And I wrote it at that point very intentionally, honestly. I know it's very soon after a bunch of transformative experiences to write something, but a lot of memoirs are written from a really comfortable distance, and being in something is also a perspective. So I was very much in the shock part of grief. And what really was the biggest learning curve I had was that it wasn't over after a year. And I truly thought that I could just be very, very good at grief. I could just sort of get through it, or maybe even around it, by staying very busy. And I realized that's not true, that this is sort of a chronic condition that I live with. It's not the same as it was a year ago or 2 years ago, but I was getting so many messages from people who were following along on Instagram or on Twitter who were like, "Oh God, I wish I was better at this. I wish I was like you. I wish I could move on." And I thought, "Oh my God, you think I've moved on?" Like, oh, no. And I think especially for my children, all 4 of the children in my beautiful blended family, I want them to know that the hard things in life are not something we're just supposed to put our head down and power through. We don't have to try to bright side it for anybody or find a silver lining. It is okay. And the sad things are not ever just sad, and the happy things in life are very rarely ever just purely happy, but that life is this complicated mix of emotions and experiences happening all at once.
I just thought there were so many really interesting points that you brought up in the book. One of the messages that I really appreciated was the message that you shape very gently, but you say, there's something to be said for letting go of the idea that you can engineer your life to your specifications. And I really liked that concept because I think sometimes there's so much desire for people to arrange everything in just the right way. And if it's not in perfect conditions, they're not going to do it. They're not going to have kids or get married or make a change. And I wondered why you think that is so prevalent right now.
I mean, currently, I would obviously blame Pinterest and Instagram, which I am an avid user of the latter. But never in our lives have we been more attuned to the lives of others. And if you are a human being, which I believe most of your listeners will be, you are tempted all of the time to look at somebody else's paper. You do that in middle school, you do that in grade school, you're like, oh God, I got the wrong shoes, or oh, you are literally looking at someone else taking a test and being like, they're going faster than me, I should speed up. But we have these keyholes into everybody's life, and we are truly, if you paid attention to how much time you spent on your phone and on different apps, my phone now tells me that.
Yeah, it's so disturbing.
It's so disturbing. It's so disturbing. And what you're doing is you're polluting your own mind. You really are, with all of these inputs. There's so much comparison. I'm not the first person to say that, but there's also in U.S. schools, like, we're taught from a very young age, like, this is what you do to get a good grade. And then we do that and we get a good grade and it feels so good. And as a result, like, I really did not have a lot of coping mechanisms for when things did not go according to plan. And really, my dad was a recovering alcoholic. My dad was sober for dozens and dozens of years. But he was really trying to tell us, in honestly just very clear ways that went over my head, like, your life is going to be difficult. You cannot plan for all of it, and it will still be okay.
I like the positive message at the end there, that it will still be okay.
It'll still be okay. If you'd have told me when I was 24, you were going to find a guy you could not even imagine, because he's so funny and he is just so into you, and you guys have so much fun together, it feels like a movie or something. And then he's going to get brain cancer and he's going to die. But first you're going to have a baby and then you're going to raise that baby on your own. I would be like, no, I would like to make a different choice.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Like, I would, I'll skip that. I'll stay with this shitty boyfriend instead, actually.
Well, we should probably talk about some of the books that you recommended before I use up all our time. So the first one I wanted to talk about is Smashed, The Story of a Drunken Girlhood by Corinne Zelkas. Is that how I say it?
I think so. I think it's Zilkas. I'm not sure.
Zilkas.
She's also an amazing novelist. I read anytime she publishes a book, I'm like, give it to me. I love it. She's an amazing writer. And that I read.
Yeah, how'd you stumble across this book? Yeah.
I believe I worked at the college bookstore.
Awesome.
Which was a great job for me because I loved standing around and eating candy. And there was a lot of candy at the checkout. And also I could, browse the books. I got a great discount. And I bought that from the college bookstore. And I remember reading it and being like, oh, maybe the way my friends and I drink isn't good. I'd never read a memoir by someone who was basically my age. I think she was 2 or 3 years older than me. And I thought, oh, people my age are interesting? Like, people would read what we're going through? Like, it had never crossed my mind that a person could write a memoir and not be, like, 50.
Yeah.
Truly. I was like, what?
I remember my creative writing professors in college told me you weren't allowed to write about college. It wasn't interesting. I remember him saying that vividly. Okay, dude, I guess I gotta wait. I know, classic.
Classic. Also, every time, anytime somebody has been like, you wrote a memoir, it's always an older man. And they're like, I think you're a little too young for a memoir. I'm like, sit down. Sit down, Bill, because I got a story that's going to ruin your day. Okay. So this book, it really, really, really stuck with me. I absolutely abused alcohol in college, but when that's the norm, it's really hard to tell that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So there was something about the way that she wrote where I really, really, really saw myself.
No, I remember reading in the beginning where she says, I'm a girl who abused alcohol, meaning I drank for the explicit purpose of getting drunk, getting brave, or medicating my moods. And I stopped after I read that sentence because it was such a specific definition of abuse that I think is so relevant to young women, like you. I recognized that behavior and I thought, that's exactly what that is. Did your drinking habits change right away after reading the book?
Right away they did. And I was like,
Wow.
I will not drink. I don't think I drank maybe it was whenever I read this book, it was whatever year I read this book was the year I didn't drink. And then I had pared down significantly like the next year. But still I was like partying a little too much. And then after college, I was like, whatever. Now I'm a grown up. Now I do whatever I want all the time. And it was definitely something that was like definitely a habit I fell back into in my 20s as well, which is like, are you feeling socially uncomfortable or are you feeling something bad? Well, you could just drink and then you won't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, they call it liquid courage. I mean, there's so many phrases.
Yeah, liquid whatever, like whatever you want it to be. It's like a Harry Potter thing. How do you want to feel? Like, do you want to feel sad? Because you will if you drink this.
Yes.
Now, if you also want to feel like super like funny and cool and climb the scaffolding outside a building and hang from your knees, this same drink could do the same thing to you. It could have that effect too. So yeah, it was not a permanent change for me, but it enabled me at least to be more conscious of the fact that was what I was doing, which I had not really considered before.
Let's talk about the second book you recommended, The Whole 30. It Starts with Food
yes.
by Dallas and Melissa Hartwig.
Yes. Okay. I know that nobody likes to read like diet books, and this isn't. I feel like the Whole 30 is often sort of mischaracterized as a diet when really it's like a way of taking care of yourself, and I don't eat this way 100% of the time. Or wait, no, didn't I give you the book Food Freedom Forever?
I thought It Starts with Food.
I definitely sent you the wrong one, but I meant Food Freedom Forever, which is sort of accompaniment to the Whole 30, but it's more about really the whole point of the Whole 30, which is that you pay attention to the way that you're feeding yourself and the way that your body reacts to food. This book is about breaking the shame that you have around your negative food patterns. And I don't even know why I bought it. But it's
what
one
were
of those
you
books
doing when you bought it? Like, what was going on?
I don't know. I think I saw it at set up at a bookstore and was like, oh, read the back of it and was like, I mean, maybe this is me. And I read it sort of surreptitiously and was like, oh, maybe I can do a Whole 30. Maybe I should try that. And I did. And I loved doing a Whole 30 because I was like, oh, that's the nicest I've ever been to myself. Like, that's the most aware I've ever been of like what I'm doing for myself. And that's what food is, and that's what eating is doing something for yourself. And so Food Freedom Forever to me is one of those books that was like a light bulb moment for me.
Finally, let's talk about Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's the memoir of psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who describes his life in Nazi death camps and its lessons for spiritual survival. I last read this in 2009, and it's one of my all-time favorite books, so I was happy to see that you recommended it.
It's one of my all-time favorite books, too. And I probably read it in the same era that I read Corin's book, which is just a deep sort of situational depression had sort of settled in on me. College was a really hard time for me. I'm just rediscovering every time I have to talk about it. I'm like, I was just deeply, deeply unhappy, and it felt like it was just me.
Yeah. It's such a hard time. Yeah.
It's such a hard time. And when Aaron was diagnosed with cancer, it was a book that he pulled off my bookshelf and was like, what is this one about? This looks short enough for me to read.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah, I think that's a book you could use right now. Honestly, I think that's a book that you should read. And Aaron read that too. And so I still have that same copy that he and I both read, that he and I both turned down pages in. And it is just, I mean, I think the world probably doesn't even know how many Viktor Frankl quotes that they've liked on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, like how many of his insights are sort of floating through the ether of the internet and floating through our own consciousness unattributed.
We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
So how did it change your life in college, and then how did it change your life reading it again with Aaron?
It's one of those books where everything, like every word, is so meaningful and so important. And even though it's short, you read it slowly because you're afraid that you might miss something or that you might not metabolize some of this wisdom that is being imparted on you, and that doesn't feel as if it's written to be wise. It feels as if it's just written because it was true and this person, you know, had to say it. So I feel like it's one of those books that just got into me. It's not as if I was like, well, now I'm not depressed anymore, but it made me less outwardly focused on all of the things that I thought were, you know, going wrong or that weren't right, that weren't living up to these expectations that I had had for my life, and more focused on myself and what I could control.
Yeah.
Because I was a very, very, very outwardly focused person at that time in my life. And Aaron was naturally very positive. She was just a very happy person. Even when he was diagnosed with incurable stage 4 brain cancer, he was not a person who got down about things. And there's a lot that's different between surviving a concentration camp in the Holocaust and being diagnosed with cancer in the year 2014 in America. But just everybody wants to know how to survive the unsurvivable, or how you get through something. And not everybody survives. Not everybody gets through something. But the people who do tend to just say, you do it.
That's Nora McInerny. Today we spoke about the books Smashed, Story of a Drunken Girlhood, Food, Freedom Forever, and Man's Search for Meaning. Nora's new memoir is No Happy Endings, and it's out now. You can find all the books we discussed on Goodreads in the book group Books of Your Life with Elizabeth. You can also connect with your fellow readers there. Books of Your Life is produced by me, Elizabeth, with Melissa Yeager-Miller, and with help from Danny Fakis and Sybil Wallace. Production help from Will Rogers and Craig Billmeyer. Audiobooks from Audible are a great way to get more books in your life. With the free Audible app, you can listen while commuting, doing chores, working out, anytime, anywhere, on any device. Audible's unmatched selection includes my guest, Nora McInerny's recommendation, Smashed, Story of a Drunken Girlhood, by Corin Zalkas. Get it free along with 2 selected Audible original titles when you start a 30-day trial or choose any other audiobook. To get started, just visit audible.com/Goodreads or text Goodreads to 500-500.